Hello everyone and welcome back to my Warhammer 40k guides. I am Brady and today I would like to give you guys and gals a preview of the Black Templars supplement that can be found in the new Psychic Awakening book called Faith and Fury. I have received the review copy from Games Workshop for this new book, and this book includes new rules for Space Marines, Black Templars, and Chaos Space Marines. So in this video I will cover the Black Templar supplement, and I will have separate videos covering the new Space Marine rules and the Chaos Space Marine rules. The Space Marine video should be up already, either earlier today or a day or two ago, and the Chaos Space Marine video should be up later today or within a day or two of this video's release. I'd also like to thank Games Workshop for sending me out this review copy so I can give you guys and gals my competitive focused perspective on all these new rules. Pre-order for this book is available today, and the book will be fully released on November 23rd. And if you play any of these armies, then I highly recommend picking up this book to supplement your army. So with all that said, let's dive into the new Black Templar supplement that is found in this book. So to start off, I noticed something really weird that I think Games Workshop overlooked. So in this supplement, Black Templars get their own chapter doctrine, units, stratagems, relics, and warlord traits. And these unlock based on certain prerequisites. The stratagems unlock as long as you have a Black Templars detachment, and the combat doctrines get unlocked if you have only models with the Angels of Death rule in your entire army, and the chapter doctrine is only unlocked if your entire army is Black Templars. So nothing out of the ordinary for those parts. Every Space Marine army from the Space Marine Codex follows those same rules. The thing that's weird though, is that nowhere in this supplement, at least to my knowledge, does it state that the Black Templars doctrine or stratagems overrides the Imperial Fist doctrine and stratagems. So Black Templars are an Imperial Fist successor chapter, and based on the rules from the Imperial Fist supplement, all successor chapters benefit from the Imperial Fist rules as long as their whole army is that successor. So unless I'm missing something from this book, or it gets FAQ'd, Black Templars will benefit from their own chapter doctrine, the Imperial Fist chapter doctrine, the Black Templar stratagems, and the Imperial Fist stratagems. I'm 99% sure this isn't intended and that I probably am missing something, but if I didn't miss anything, then this is how the army will work until it's FAQ'd. And I'm 99% sure it will get FAQ'd. I just wanted to point that out because I thought it was interesting, and if it doesn't get FAQ'd, then Black Templars will be pretty overloaded with rules. For the purpose of this video though, I'm going to assume Black Templars will have to give up the Imperial Fist stuff in order to benefit from their own rules in this supplement. So that's how I'm going to approach this video. So let's begin. Like I said earlier, in this book you will find data sheets for Black Templar specific units, bonus rules for Black Templars like their chapter doctrine, relics, warlord traits, and stratagems. No psychic spells though, because Black Templars don't really like psychic powers, but instead, Black Templars get a full page of new litanies. Let's start out with the data sheets. I'm going to do something a bit different this time, and I'm only going to mention the changes to these data sheets. In the parts of these data sheets that remain the same, I'll just either not mention it, or I'll say they are the exact same as before. For High Marshal Helbrecht, his data sheet stayed more or less the same. There's 3 differences though, and those are that he now has 5 attacks instead of 4, his reroll aura now rerolls any hit rolls instead of just failed hit rolls, which now matches the way rerolls work for all of the other Space Marine chapters, and he also has the new Angels of Death rule. With the new Shock Assault rule, this means Helbrecht will now have 6 attacks on the charge, and with the reroll aura change, he should be able to help his army better deal with negative to hit modifiers. So overall, a pretty decent change, and he is still 150 points. The Emperor's Champion has had a few changes as well. 5 base attacks now instead of 4, leadership 9 instead of 8, he also gets the Angels of Death rule, and a new rule called Skillful Parry. This ability makes the champion -1 to hit in close combat, making him a tiny bit more survivable while fighting. So I think these changes are pretty good. With 5 attacks base, this means he will have 6 attacks on the charge because of Shock Assault, or 7 attacks when fighting a character because of Sigmund's Honor. He is also still 75 points, so overall a good buff in my opinion. Chaplain Grimaldus has received some buffs as well. His stat line is the exact same, but his Crozius is now Strength +2, -2 AP, and 2 damage. He also lost the reroll hits buff, but every chaplain lost that because it's now a litany. But Grimaldus can generate 2 litanies and cast 2 litanies. He also now has the Angels of Death rule, and a new rule called Devout Puritan. This rule allows Grimaldus to attempt to deny 1 psychic spell per psychic phase, as if he were a librarian. This is really handy since Black Templars can't take any psychers at all, so this is a way to get a deny roll into your list. Also, his Unmatched Zeal ability now only works on unmodified hit rolls of 6, which makes it consistent with a lot of the new Space Marine bonuses that do something special on rolls of 6. Grimaldus is also still 90 points, so the same as before. So even though he did receive some slight nerfs, I do think that this is an overall buff for him. As for the non-HQ units that are from this book, we have Cenobite Servitors and Crusader Squads. The Cenobite Servitors are 2 points per model. They do not take up a detachment slot if that detachment includes Grimaldus, and they now give a 4+ Feel No Pain against mortal wounds to units within 6 inches of them. This gives Black Templars another way to fend off psychic spells, since the damage from psychic spells is always mortal wounds. The unit itself is not very durable though, so they could easily be shot down on turn 1, and then you have to deal with all the psychic stuff without the feel no pain starting on turn 2. I think this unit is alright. It's easy kill points for the enemy, but it could distract them for a turn and keep your better units alive from the psychic spells. If you're not against any psychic spells though, then I feel this unit is kinda useless, but for 6 points for 3 models, it's really not that huge of an investment. For the Crusaders, they are more or less the same, except it looks like they get less war gear options than before, but I could just be misreading that. They now have the Angels of Death rule and a new rule called Paired Combatants. This rule states that as long as you have as many initiates as neophytes in the unit, your neophytes can reroll hit rolls of 1 in close combat. A nice little upgrade, but in my opinion, not a huge upgrade. Still very good though. As for their points, they are 13 points per model and 11 points for the neophytes, not including war gear. And that's it for the units. So now let's discuss the Black Templars chapter doctrine. So your Black Templar army gains this doctrine as long as your entire army is made up of only Black Templars units. And it states, while the assault doctrine is active, when resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by a Black Templars model with this ability against a unit that is not a vehicle in a turn in which this model made a charge move or performed a heroic intervention, an unmodified hit roll of 6 automatically scores a hit and successfully wounds the target. I think this is pretty cool. It could help with the little guys trying to wound big guys as long as the big guys aren't a vehicle, since if they roll 6s to hit, they don't need to roll the wound roll, which gets past that part. And it makes wounding regular units a tiny bit more efficient. But overall, I think this is probably the most lackluster out of all the chapter doctrines. It doesn't come into play until the assault doctrine, which is turn 3 being the soonest you can get there, at least by normal means. There is another way to get this as soon as turn 1 though, which we'll get to later on in the book. So now let's go over the 6 new litanies that Black Templars have access to. Again, I assume they get these litanies because they don't really have any psychic spells or librarians, so this is their psychic discipline essentially. The first litany targets a friendly Black Templar unit within 6 inches of the chaplain, and that unit gains a 5+ feel no pain. This could be very good if you have one super unit you want to protect and keep alive, something like Assault Centurions or a Land Raider Crusader. And the reason I mention those is because, well, there's a lot of stuff in this book that is probably going to make those units amazing. The second litany is a 6-inch aura that allows friendly Black Templar units to reroll wound rolls of 1 when in close combat. This could be pretty good as well. It drops the need to have a lieutenant to stay with your melee force, and instead you can have your lieutenant hang out with a gunline part of your army while the chaplain runs up and buffs the melee part of your force. The third litany is a 6-inch debuff aura that subtracts 2 from leadership of enemy units within the aura. This could be really good in a gimmick list that combines the Inquisition that kill units through leadership modifiers. But other than that, I think it's okay, but probably not the best litany to go with. The fourth litany targets a friendly Black Templars unit within 6 inches of the Psyker and gives that unit +1 attack per model if they charge or perform a heroic intervention. So this will stack on top of Shock Assault, so your unit will get +2 attacks per model when they charge or heroically intervene. I think this would be really good on any big unit to get the most bang for your buck and drown the enemy in dice, but it could also be useful on strong characters like the Emperor's Champion to ensure they cut down their target, or a small blob of Assault Centurions. The fifth litany is actually really cool and really unique. It's a 6-inch aura that increases aura abilities on units within that aura by 3 inches, meaning the auras that Helbrecht gives will be 9 inches if he's in the range of the chaplain that's giving off this aura of auras, I guess you can call it. I think this is really cool because then people might actually play Helbrecht instead of just taking generic Primaris Captain and upgrading him to be a chapter master with the Vox Asperatum. With that said, there's a couple of other bonuses in here that will probably lead to people just playing generic characters to be able to get 12-inch auras, not using the Vox Asperatum, but yeah, again, we'll get to that when we get there. And the final litany targets a friendly Black Templars unit within 6 inches and makes it so that unit always fights first in the fight phase even if it didn't charge that turn. This could be pretty decent as a defensive buff since it stops you from having to pay 2 command points to interrupt because the enemy who charged still gets to attack first, but then you get to attack with this unit second. I've always found these always attack first rules to be kind of misleading because if they get charged by an enemy unit, then that charging unit is always going to attack first since they're the turn player. So it's really only useful to like save 2 command points instead of having to spend on the interrupt stratagem, or if your opponent doesn't charge at all but there's combats on the board, then your unit can attack first. So still overall really useful. I just always found these kind of always attack first rules kind of weird. And that's it for the new litanies. I think that the +1 attack characteristic litany and the 5+ feel no pain litany are the best, with the reroll wound rolls of 1 litany and the +3-inch aura litany being the second best ones. I think Black Templars might actually have an excuse to run 2 chaplains with all the litanies they get, and also the fact that they don't bring librarians for spells, so you kinda replace a librarian with a chaplain. I could see combinations like +2 to charge litany and the +1 attack litany being on one chaplain, and the reroll 1s to wound and a 5+ feel no pain on the other chaplain. Personally, I think it would probably be best to bring just 2 regular chaplains with jump packs. Sure, you do kind of miss out on some of the bonuses that Grimaldus gives, but those jump packs just give you a very good positioning edge, so you can always get those units to where they want to be. whereas Grimaldus has got to rely on like an advance roll if he really needs to get up the board. Plus some of the relics you can take on these guys and stuff are really good, and Grimaldus can't take a relic or a Warlord trait. Well, he can take a Warlord trait, but it has to be a specific one. So yeah, I think the generic chaplains with jump packs are going to be the go-to. Now let's move on to the new Warlord traits. The first trait that I'd like to talk about is called Frontline Commander, and it's a 6-inch aura that increases advance and charge rolls made for Black Templars by 1 inch. This means that they can get up the board faster through advancing, and then gain a bonus to charge as well. Unfortunately, this doesn't stack with the +2 to charge from the Chaplain Litany, but it's still good overall, especially just because of the advancing part. It gets your army closer to the enemy so you can get in there and get in glorious melee combat quicker. The second Warlord trait I like allows your Warlord to make a Psychic Denial roll as if he was a Psyker, and he gains +1 to this roll. Pretty good since Black Templars don't really have any Psykers, and denying crucial spells can help you win the game. And the last Warlord trait I'd like to show you guys and gals is a 6-inch aura that makes Black Templars wound rolls of 6 in close combat gain an additional AP. It's pretty good, but again, because it only happens on wound rolls of 6, it's not going to happen extremely often. It'll happen once in a while, but not really when you want it to happen unless you get super lucky. But I still think it's decent, so I included it. There are 3 other Warlord traits, but personally I think these 3 are the best, with the +1 advance and charge Warlord trait being my favorite. Let's now go over the new stratagems I like. So there is 1 page of stratagems featuring 8 new stratagems altogether. I'm only going to talk about the ones that I like and think are useful in competitive play. Abhor the Witch, which is 1 command point. This stratagem allows a Black Templar unit to cancel a manifested psychic power on a roll of 4+ if they are within 24 inches of the Psyker casting the spell. It does also specify that this can happen after any deny rolls have taken place, so you have a chance to deny the spell with something like that Warlord trait or Grimaldus' ability, and if you fail that, then this is your plan B to abort the spell. This could be extremely useful, and is probably the best psychic defense in the game since it's a 50-50 chance to stop that spell. But actually much better than that, since you get to try to attempt to deny it first, and if that fails you go for this, and if this fails you can use a command point reroll to try again. Devout Push. This stratagem is 1 command point and allows a unit to pile in and consolidate 6 inches instead of 3 inches. This is a great stratagem for either taking hostages, which if you don't know what I mean by that phrase, then check out my tips and tricks for melee armies video because I talk about it a lot in there, or it allows you to tie up more units afterwards to stop yourself from being shot at on the following turn. This also combos with another stratagem that we're going to talk about in a second. Tenacious Assault. This stratagem is probably my favorite of all the new stratagems, and it's the one that combos with Devout Push. It's 2 command points, but when a non-flyer battlefield roll unit tries to leave combat with one of your Black Templar unit, you roll a dice. On a 2+, that enemy unit cannot leave combat. This could be brutal against armies like Tau, since sure, all of their battle suits have the fly keyword, but they don't have the flyer battlefield roll. So you could hold a Riptide in combat if you really wanted to, which will 1, stop you from being shot at on their turn, and 2, allow you to just sit there and beat that thing to death. It's also amazing against a ton of gunline armies, because those types of armies would rather shoot you than fight you. And holding them in combat just means that you don't get shot at on their turn, but you still get to punch that unit on their turn. And like I said earlier, you can combine this with the Devout Push stratagem to tie up some good units, and then use this stratagem to hold them there. Amazing stratagem in my opinion. The Emperor's Will. This stratagem is 1 command point and allows a Black Templar's infantry unit to shoot their pistols and charge in a turn in which they advanced. Combine this with the +1 to advance Warlord trait for some good advances, and then you can get into combat as early as turn 2 from running across the board. And the last stratagem I want to show you guys and gals is called Shock and Awe. This stratagem is 1 command point, and you select 1 infantry unit that disembarked from a Land Raider Crusader. Until the end of that turn that they disembarked, they ignore Overwatch, and when resolving an attack made against that unit, it's resolved at -1 to hit. I think this could be really good if you bring some Assault Centurions and a Land Raider Crusader. That's probably my personal choice for how I'd use this stratagem. With that said, it could work really well for any unit you put inside the Crusader, but I currently think that Assault Centurions are just too good for their points to not use, especially if you're trying to play competitively. Bring them with Hurricane Bolters so they're also a decent shooting unit, and all these bonuses that you get with the Stratagems, the Litanies, the Auras, and the Relics, you can just mulch through enemy units and then tie units up behind them, not allow them to leave on their turn, so then you can destroy them on their turn, and then you repeat the process. So maybe taking the Land Raider with Centurions, buff the Land Raider up to have the 5+ Feel No Pain, and a 4+ Invul from a relic we're going to talk about in a moment. You can also buff up the Sergeant of the Centurions to be able to snipe out Psykers, which is another thing we'll talk about in a minute. You can also give the unit +1 attack from that 1 Litany, and +2 to charge from the other Litany. So to be honest, I'm starting to see some really good combos coming out of this book for Assault Centurions and Land Raiders. Maybe there's some other combos that could work with this and are better, but off the top of my head, that's my initial thought is I'm going to Assault Centurions and the Crusaders. And that's going to be it for the stratagems. So now let's go over the relics to finish off this video. The first relic is the Crusader's Helm. This relic increases all auras the bearer has by 3 inches to a maximum of 12 inches, and units within 6 inches, or technically 9 inches of the relic bearer, treat themselves as being in the Assault Doctrine. So with this, I think taking an upgraded Chaplain to have the +2 to charge aura litany and the +3 inches to all of his auras, give him this relic for a 12-inch aura that gives +2 to charge and counts all the units within that aura as being in the Assault Doctrine. I think this relic will be a staple in Black Templars lists. The Aurelian Shroud. This relic gives a 3-inch aura from the bearer that gives Black Templar units within it a 4+ invulnerable save. Combine this with the Vox Asperatum for a +3-inch aura, and then the extra +3-inch aura that you get from the Chaplain, and you'll have a 9-inch aura that gives 4+ invuls to anything. I'm sure this will probably be FAQ'd, but for the time it isn't, yeah, use this on Land Raider Crusaders with Centurions in them. And with that said, that's going to be it for the new stuff Black Templars has to offer. Again, all of this information is assuming it gets FAQ'd and the Black Templars can't benefit from the Imperial Fist bonuses as well as these bonuses, since I personally feel like that would be a little bit much, but honestly we don't know what Games Workshop's intentions are until the FAQ from this book drops. Because if they do get to keep both, then they're going to have their Devastator Doctrine where they get +1 damage against vehicles with heavy weapons, and they're going to have all of the stratagems that Imperial Fist have to offer, which there's some really good stratagems in there. So yeah, I kind of think it'll be a little much, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see what the FAQ says. And even without them though, I think this book is still good by itself. I think the Black Templars can definitely work as an army in competitive with just this book and the Space Marine Codex. So overall, I think this was an incredibly good update for Black Templars. At first, when I started going through the supplement, I had my doubts, but after seeing the whole picture, I actually think you can make a very strong pure Black Templars list, and even some cheesy soup lists with Inquisition or other chapters. And I say cheesy because you could make a pretty gimmicky list that, like I mentioned earlier, goes based off of enemy leadership modifiers, and then nuking enemies with psychic spells that are based off of the enemy's leadership. In this book though, they have some pretty strong relics and stratagems, and some good litanies to make up for their lack of spells. And that's really all they need in order to be a good option in soup. The doctrines make them pretty good as well, but because their chapter doctrine is kind of lackluster in my opinion, it's probably best to soup these guys up with another chapter of some kind, maybe Iron Hands or Ultramarines or something like that, something that can provide the shooting while the Templars get in there and do the stabbing. I still do think Black Templars would be good on their own though. I'm just saying I also think they'd be good in a soup army if you wanted to go that route. So overall, I think this book is a win for Black Templar players. And that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button, also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell icon if you want to be notified when I make new videos. Also, check me out on Patreon if you want to help support the channel even further, or if you want to benefit from any of the rewards I provide on Patreon, like exclusive access to the Almost Pro Gaming Discord server, personal coaching from myself, custom list building from myself. Also, I again recommend picking up the Faith and Fury book if you play Space Marines, Black Templars, or Chaos Space Marines, since it includes good rules for all those factions and you'll want to have them for your games of 40k. I already posted a video about the Space Marine updates from this book, and later tonight or within the next day or two, I should have a video going over all the Chaos stuff as well. So feel free to check that out if you play any of the Chaos Space Marine Legions, or if you're just curious what kind of changes they received. Anyways, I'd like to thank all my patrons. You guys and gals are awesome, and I honestly can't thank you all enough for helping support me and my channel, and thanks to all you viewers for watching my video. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Happy wargaming.